Welcome to a new mini SORNA build in Jurassic World Evolution 2, and in this episode I'm building an Atrociraptor horror habitat inspired by Chaos Theory, but don't worry, there's not going to be any spoilers for Chaos Theory, beyond the fact that at some points there are Atrociraptors in an environment that includes shipping containers. That's all there is to say about that. That sort of inspired me to create this habitat, but I'm starting with the entry point. And the entry point of the habitat is going to have this, like, universal ride sort of feel to it. And I think it's going to be a very universal idea that you can incorporate in many exhibits in your own park. So I really hope that you're going to get some good ideas from this. So in this walled-in section, that's where guests first enter this Atrociraptor horror habitat. It has, like, a whole build-up, a whole prelude before you actually get into the habitat. And the idea is that it creates the illusion that guests are actually walking among the Atrociraptors, and the Atrociraptors can pounce you at any moment. Although, of course, before the park was abandoned, it was all safe and sound. Not so much afterwards. So yeah, I had an idea in mind for several sections leading up to the habitat. So you have the initial front section where you arrive into the area. There's shops on either side, and then there's two, like, doorways straight up ahead that I'm trying to fiddle in some path right now. And one is the entry and one is the exit point. And there's gonna be a little extra surprise after you head into the entrance of this area that I think just really helps, sell the idea of a universal type of ride. As I'm figuring out some stuff in the past, I want to thank you guys so much for massively subscribing to the channel. Over 7,000 new subscribers this month. That's absolutely amazing. Thank you so much. I hope that you're still enjoying all of these building series, with, of course, a lot more to come. So consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already for the continuation of Mini SORNA and all the other stuff that we'll be doing in the future. And also, allow me to apologize for the fact that this is a Mini SORNA episode and it's not a Sunday. Don't worry, next time it'll be a Sunday again, but the whole universe was against me getting this episode out on a Sunday. Anyway, back to talking about the build. I am once again doing the outdoor movie theater idea that we first used in the Microstratus habitat last week. It was a suggestion from JS Proximus, and I feel like it works so well here. So our guests come into the Atrociraptor horror habitat, and first, the terrain constraints, don't get me started. I had to start over that section. Anyway, so after they arrive into the Atrociraptor horror habitat, there's first, like, this little showing of maybe a couple of clips of Chaos Theory to set the scene and sort of make the guests feel immersed in the on-screen universe. So apparently in the mini SORNA universe, Chaos Theory exists. So yeah, they come into this area first, they watch a couple of clips about the Atrociraptors roaming free, and maybe they're given, like, a pretend assignment, like certain points within the habitat that they need to reach to get to safety, something like that, to really add to the story and the experience for guests, and I don't know, maybe freak them out a little bit before they head in there. I'm just trying to figure out what I want to put in there. Now, I might upset some people, but I ended up putting a Velociraptor sign in there. I know it's not accurate, but at least it was something to fill the space. And of course, as always, I'm hiding the back of the building, especially because at the bottom of the screen right there with the sandy line, that's where there's going to be a path. So yeah, I don't want guests to be seeing the ugly back of the building. In terms of foliage, you see me using the biosyn trees, and those are the predominant trees for this particular habitat build, just because they felt a little bit more creepy than the very pretty and vacation-esque tropical looking stuff. So yeah, that's why I decided for the biosyn trees. And of course, we're now at about the halfway point of Mini SORNA, and that means we're going to be fading the tropical look into a redwood look anyway. So I felt like using these trees for this habitat was okay, since we're gonna be going into more of the redwood aesthetic anyway. So I guess that's sort of the excuse that I gave myself, that it's okay to use these trees. I hope you don't mind too much that this episode 8 is a speed build episode. I really wanted to try to get it out on Sunday, and I felt like the only way I could make that happen was turn it into a speed build kind of video, because I just build a lot faster. It's a lot faster editing. So yeah, this was my attempt at getting it out on Sunday, but unfortunately, even doing it as a speed build episode could not make up for the delays that this episode had suffered. I've been having 2 really weird weeks, and I really can't say much about it because it is very personal. It involves a death in the family, unfortunately. So there was that going on, and it just took up a lot of brain space. Of course, we had chaos theory. I had some social responsibilities. It was just too much. And then, like, at the finish line, my game ended up crashing, and I just had to take a step back at that point. So yeah, I couldn't get it done on Sunday, but I promise I will always do my best to keep SORNA Sunday a thing. And I foresee no issues with getting the next episode out on SORNA as usual. I'm fencing in the back area here because this is going to be like our safe zone. This is sort of a place that the guests have to reach. This is sort of like, you know, that they can take a little bit of a breather from all of the excitement in the horror habitat. And also it's just a goal for them to get to, you know, sort of, again, to create that story that they have to get themselves to the safe zone by making their way through the Atrociraptor habitat. Or at least, you know, pretending that they're making their way through the Atrociraptor habitat. Initially, of course, you know, the Atrociraptors would have been safely behind invisible fencing. So, for me, a horror habitat just demands some destroyed buildings, and what I'm doing right now is really just placing some buildings, destroying them, and seeing what they look like and whether I like the look of them, because not all destroyed buildings are equal. So I really picked the ones that I liked the specific look of when they were destroyed. With a little top tip, the next building I'm going to add, I think, or maybe the one after that, one of my favorite destroyed buildings is the DFW small guest hotel. That looks really good when destroyed. So yeah, that's what I'm doing right now. I'm just selecting buildings, seeing how they look destroyed, and then sort of puzzling them into this pretty small area, that has to be said. The habitat for the Atrociraptors is gonna turn out quite small, which I would have preferred to have it a little bit bigger, but that's, you know, the challenge that you deal with when you can't change the outline of the island, as I'm doing with Mini SORNA. If it was just a custom island, I would have shifted the river over a little bit so I could have made the habitat for the Atrociraptors bigger. But I think in the end, it's okay-ish, considering that it's not really the most ethical place in the world to begin with. Okay. So now that I have like my building placement figured out, I'm going to lay down some path, and this is of course going to be the guest trajectory throughout this area, throughout this habitat. And I'm using the facility path just because it's narrow, it has a small hitbox so it can get really close to the buildings. Of course, we're doing our little cutout areas to make it look damaged, you know, make it look worse for wear, all of that. It's just my go-to path when there's not an abundance of space to work with and you really have to fit the path into small spaces to optimize the space. Because again, I was really, you know, attempting to make the actual habitat for the Atrociraptor as big as possible in the limited amount of space that I had left. Now, I went with the Atrociraptor and a horror theme because I was inspired by chaos theory and wanted to do something with that. But obviously you can do this with any species and really change up the vibe as well. You know, this fake walkthrough habitat, or you could make it a real walkthrough habitat if you want it as well. I just think it works really well with the idea of starting with a little movie screening and this whole entrance area. I feel like it's a really versatile idea, and that's why I hope that, you know, even though this is an abandoned park, I really want to show you guys different ideas that I hope you can and will use in your own park builds. By the way, over the course of this episode, you see me, I've cut out several moments of them, but you just saw a dinosaur die, one of the compies died. This park is already struggling, and we're about halfway through, and I'm dealing with a lot of compies getting stuck in place, and they starve so quickly that oftentimes I get so distracted that I don't realize in time that they need my assistance. But also, Payakan, the Mosasaurus, got stuck and needed to be rescued. It's a whole ordeal. I'm really being confronted with the lacking optimization of the game in this park. So it does make me a little nervous about the future of Mini SORNA, but we will move forward, we will persevere, and hopefully we can make it to the end while still having, decent performance left. Along with the buildings that I put in because I like the look of them, I also added an attraction viewing tower for guests to use. And that is because even though this park is going to be abandoned, I do want to share the idea with you that if you're gonna do something like this, you should put in an actual attraction. You should connect the buildings, and ideally you would also fit in an amenity, and that's really gonna encourage your guests to actually be using this path. Again, for my park, it's not that important because we're gonna be working with it closed anyway. But if you want to do this, walk-through habitat idea, you always want to incorporate a building that actually lures in your guests. These facility buildings also, generate people, but they generate facility people. So if you want your plainclothes guests to actually be enjoying your habitat, you need to add in attractions or amenities. So that's why I stuck that viewing tower in there to share that wealth of knowledge with you. Now it's time for the fun part, which is to optically blend the interior and the exterior of the habitat. I'm leaving space between the path, as you can see there. There's these stretches of grass, because initially the idea was to have invisible fencing there. Make it a functional thing and just embrace the necessity of invisible fencing. But I actually cut it out because the hitbox on the invisible fencing is just too awful to work with. It's too big. It made no sense. So instead we're gonna, imagine that there's actual invisible fencing underground. And instead I'm creating a barrier with these containers and rocks and a log, bushes, all of that. And it's just a necessity because of the hitbox of the actual invisible fence. Otherwise I would have incorporated both ideas, both the items and the invisible fencing. Here's another starving compy getting stuck. But yeah, that didn't work. Starving compy died, by the way. What was I talking about? Right. So I had to scratch the actual invisible fencing and just go with pretend invisible fencing and fully rely on the decorations to enclose the area. But I think it creates really awesome viewing opportunities for the guests. You're gonna see that at the end of this video. We're gonna do a mini tour of this area, so you'll see what I mean, because we're already sort of moved past it. I got distracted by, dying compies and whatnot. But yeah, when you walk through this area, it's so cool. These peekaboo moments where you're all of a sudden looking into a habitat where Atrociraptors are roaming, and it doesn't feel like there's a barrier between you and the dinosaurs. I think it worked out really well. I love making habitats like that, so this was just the perfect excuse to do that. Of course, also using a lot of shipping containers inside the habitat to reference that particular scene in Chaos Theory. The 4 Atrociraptor cages felt like a necessity. And other than that, it's just a matter of adding decorations inside what will be the habitat to make it feel like it's a guest area, actually. Or not a guest area, but facility area. It's not meant for dinosaurs to be roaming around, yet there are. By the way, if you've been enjoying the video, please give it a like, and again, stick around till the end, because we're gonna do a little walk around of this entire area so you get a better idea of what we built, and you can use it as inspiration for your own builds, which I really hope that every single episode of this is gonna give you some ideas that you can incorporate in your own awesome parks, and that it's still gonna keep you excited about Jurassic World Evolution 2, even though we don't quite know about the future. There is gonna be a Frontier Unlocked livestream tomorrow that I will definitely be tuning into to see if there are any clues about the future of the game. But of course, you know, subscribe to the channel if you want to make sure that you're up to date on everything and you don't want to sit through the Frontier streams yourself, because they can drag on a little bit. And in 3, 2, 1, there we go. The Mosasaurus stuck in place, so I had to rescue this Mosasaurus. But of course, there's no lagoon hatchery still attached to the lagoon, so it required quite a bit of finagling to get a lagoon hatchery attached to this lagoon, so I could track it and sort of get it unstuck. And this is something that causes fear in my heart for the continuation of this build, because I don't want to keep that lagoon hatchery over there in case Payakan gets stuck again, but I'm a little afraid that this problem is going to keep repeating itself. So yeah. It's only really a problem in this park because I still have hunger and I think also thirst still activated. I guess if problems like this just keep persisting, I'm gonna have to turn off hunger and food requirements. Oh, let's just watch this for a little bit. See, this is why I want to keep the food requirements on, so we can catch moments like that during the tour as well. But if the park is gonna keep giving me problems like this, I'm gonna have to turn it off, I'm afraid. But I hope that we can make it quite a bit further before that will become a necessity. I'm adding the last bit of detailing to the Atrociraptor horror habitat, you know, lining all of that with these concrete barriers. Even though, you know, there's not going to be a habitat on the other side of that, but I feel like that makes it a little bit more consistent to have the concrete barrier in more places than just where it separates the guest path from the interior of the habitat, you know, because you want to create that illusion that it's all just one continuous thing. Adding, you know, the foliage to make it look overgrown, which is only appropriate for what this habitat is, but also the park overall is an abandoned build. I added all of these banana plants as well. They are my favorite from the tropical set, but then I remembered, oh right, I was doing the whole biosyn tree set, so I got rid of my banana plants, rip, and replaced them with the biosyn trees, because they just look more spooky. That's really all there is to it. I think for next week, what I probably want to do is get started on the T-Rex habitat. Even though that's going to be a little bit further down the park, but I just want to make sure that I have the space left that I need to build what I want to build for the T-Rexes. You know, because if I wait until we actually get to that area, I might accidentally encroach on it a little bit too much, and then I will have created a bad situation for myself. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you want to stay up to date on Jurassic World Evolution 2, Jurassic World Evolution 3, or whatever it's going to be called, and of course the builds that we're still going to be doing in this iteration of the game. You know, we still have a long way to go on mini SORNA, and I'm still not done with regards to my ideas. There's also another horror habitat idea brewing outside of mini SORNA that I'm excited to show you. On Thursday, there's going to be a massive tour of my All Lagoon Park build, which I'm super excited to show you because that park really turned out beautifully, and it's all just thanks to the game still looking so gorgeous. So yeah, a lot of building and inspiration content still coming to the channel that I hope you're going to be on board for. And for this video, I hope that you'll stick around to the end to see the little tour of this area, because I really feel like, you know, flying around it in God mode doesn't quite do it justice. Now we're going to be doing this little mini tour during the daytime, But I feel like when we do the actual full tour of Mini SORNA, we're gonna turn on the day-night cycle, and this area should probably be enjoyed during a nighttime visit. But let's get into a little bit of a preview tour of this area of Mini SORNA. Okay, so I still have to make like the path and everything leading up to this, but this is so cool. Like, this feels like a genuine universal ride experience. So you come into the arrival area, there's shops on either side, or I guess in this case a little restaurant with seating. And this is the entrance. Oh god, and that's the exit right there with the red flags. So you go through. Around the corner you see all this foliage peeking through, because you know it's overgrown and all of that. Mr. DNA just wants a drop of your blood. And another. And then you come in here, and this just reminds me so much of when I went to Jurassic World, the exhibition. Like, before you go into the exhibition, you go into this like little room with benches, and there's a screen, and you get like a little introductory experience, like pretending that you're on a ship going to Nublar. So, you know, this could be like a little screening of a couple of scenes from Camp Cretaceous to set the mood, and then when that is finished, you go into the actual area of the park, into the actual attraction. And it starts with just this kind of claustrophobic feeling, this hallway with these tall concrete fencing, and then you see a shipping container. What? And bam, it just opens up, and you just see them over there, but you can look into the habitat through these quote-unquote windows. And obviously we're pretending that there's invisible fencing here, and there would be if the invisible fencing didn't have an atrocious hitbox, and haha, atrocious Atrociraptor. Anyway, but yeah, there's like these little glimpses into the habitat, and the rest is just obstructed and makes you feel like you're walking in the area. And if you run along, ooh, scary, scary, scary. You know, you come into the safe zone right here, which has a lovely view of the Brachiosaurus habitat. So, you know, that's really peaceful and calm if you need to lower your heart rate a bit. And then you can go back and find your way out of this atrocious horror experience. I really love how this building looks when destroyed. I really paid attention to that when selecting the buildings. You know, what looks good when it's destroyed, and that was definitely one of them. So here's another viewpoint into the habitat, and you see the 4 Atrociraptor cages. Oh, there they go. And if we go around here, we have one last... Oh, and of course they're running free because, well, that's kind of the thing, isn't it? That's kind of the thing with this park. But this will be another viewing opportunity to look into the habitat. And this is where the Atrociraptors can escape. There's no way for me to patch that. And honestly, considering the type of park that it is, I don't particularly want to patch that, right? So they've genuinely overtaken the area now. And then you come through here. There's a viewing tower as well to look at the whole area. And this I thought was interesting. Instead of fencing, you look through these cages. There's like this like hallway almost corridor of these cages. And then this is your last opportunity to look into the habitat. Ooh, it is kind of scary. That spooked me a little bit. I wasn't prepared for that. And then you come around through here, and you're back at the entry section. And yeah, this is just, you know, a little blockade, but you can see people going in, and importantly, people going in can see people come out and look all distressed and stuff. Where are you going, buddy? Buddy, you do have to stay in this area, please. God dang it. He keeps escaping the area. Hey, I closed the park. This is not right. There's something wrong with the save file, folks. There is something wrong with the save file. Here, the park is closed. What are all these people still doing here? What y'all still doing here? Oh, he killed someone! We might as well. Kill, kill, kill! Alright, who's it gonna be? Who's it gonna be? Who's gonna try the hand trick? One of these folks? Someone down here? Oh yeah. Oh yeah, who thinks they're Owen Grady? Yep. No, big mistake. Oh, big mistake, he put the hand down! That's the mistake he made, shouldn't have put the hand down. Alright, so that concludes the Atrociraptor horror habitat, and it's become even more horrified now that the park is abandoned. But yeah, I love this little entrance area. This is something that you can do for any sort of habitat, really. I really love this. And again, the idea for this screen outdoor theater goes to JS Proximus from the previous Mini SORNA episode. Please subscribe to the channel for the next Mini SORNA episode, which will be on Sunday again. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for watching, liking, subscribing, and until next time, enjoy the game.